resource for low vision resourcing right here in our backyard in Wichita. And so without further ado, we'd welcome you, Karen, and we're interested to see what you have to tell us.
Well, I'm excited to be here to talk to you tonight about something I'm so passionate about. I feel honored to be here. Jake was actually a patient of my own, so I feel honored to be able to speak here on the first inaugural conference. So just a little bit about myself. I am an occupational therapist. I've been practicing for almost 22 years, but have been doing low vision for the last 18 years at Envision. So I found my passion that I really enjoy doing. Just a background, when I first got out of occupational therapy school, I worked in a nursing home, and I really found my passion for working with older adults there. At my job now, I work with patients throughout the lifespan, but majority of my patients are over the age of 55. My lovely family on the upper left, but on the right side, on the right is Andra Mee. She's my certified occupational therapy assistant. So I work very closely with her. I do most of the assessments in the office, and Andra goes out into the homes primarily. So if any of you have been to any of the retirement centers, you may see Andra milling around because she sees a lot of the clients in her homes and trying to really improve, their independence, try to regain or maintain independence. So we are a nonprofit clinic. We provide 4 main services in our rehab clinic. We have occupational therapy, which is just looking at day-to-day life. We offer physical therapy, that is looking at balance and preventing falls. We have an orientation and mobility specialist. He is the person that teaches people how to use those long white canes, teaches them how to cross streets if you're blind or low vision, how to take a bus, how to get around safely, get from point A to point B. And then we offer assistive technology. So our world is becoming more and more technology, and so there are ways that we can look at accessibility so people can continue to use their smartphones, their computers, their tablets by listening or enlarging things. So I'll talk about those a little bit more. We are in downtown Wichita at 610 North Main. We are a 5-story building downtown. We're kind of catty-corner from the courthouse. Red Cross is across the street. But we've been down in that location since 2008. We also have a manufacturing plant in Wichita. So we are the second largest employer of blind and visually impaired in the U.S. So we employ people that are legally blind. We package a lot of plastic and paper products, but everything is adapted so people with low vision blindness can still do the jobs, have benefits, and be gainfully employed. Our mission in our rehab center is to improve the quality of life and provide inspiration for the blind and visually impaired through rehabilitation and education. On this slide, we just have some pictures of some of our training areas in our clinic. So we are lucky enough to have a simulated environment in the clinic that simulates an apartment. We have impairments and affect their vision. We're going to identify risk factors within the home that may put older adults at risk of falling. We're going to identify products and strategies that enhance function, safety, and independence for clients in their home, and then determine when's the best time to refer for low vision rehabilitation. So let's just start with the basics. What is a vision impairment? Well, it's anything congenital, so anything that you're born with, or it can be acquired later in life. So it could be an eye disease that they acquire later in life, but it affects your functional vision, affects their ability to do any just everyday functional task. I think a lot of times we take our vision for granted and we don't realize what we use it for. But what is legal blindness? So you may hear this term, legal blindness. Really all this is important for is the government, honestly. The government, if you want to receive disability or if you want to receive funding through the state through vocational rehab, or if you're a veteran to qualify for benefits through the VA, you have to meet this criteria of legal blindness. What that means is that your visual acuity is worse than 2200 and you're better seeing eye. And that is after surgery, glasses, contact lenses, any kind of correction. They cannot correct your vision better than 2200 in your good eye, or it can be a visual field defect of less than 20 degrees. So you have 20 degrees of visual field, like tunnel vision. So you may have 20/20 vision, but you may have tunnel vision that you only see the central area. So that's what qualifies you for legal blindness. So what does legal blindness look like? So the picture on the left is just a depiction of what 2200 vision is. You can see that there's images, there's people standing there, but you can't see it very clearly. And then the depiction on the right is showing kind of what a 20-degree field would look like. You can see the man and whatever is right next to him, ducks or whatever that is, but you can't see anything else in the field. This is another depiction of what 2200 looks like. So when you go to the eye doctor, you can kind of make out what that big E looks like, maybe the F and the P on that second line, but the rest of it is blurry. The one on the left is what normal. And if you think of 2200, for us that have normal vision, what we can see at 200 feet, the person with 2200 would have to be at 20 feet to see the same thing. If that helps that make sense with that visual acuity. So we can stand much further away and see the same thing that they have to move up closer to see. So types of visual difficulties that we may experience in our clinic. They may have impaired contrast sensitivity. So a good example of that is, imagine you're pouring coffee and you're putting it into a black mug. Well, it's hard to see where the black coffee is against the black mug. But if you use a white mug and you put black coffee, you can see the level of the coffee as it rises. That's just an example of contrast. They may have the field defects like we talked about, where they may have constricted fields. Their fields may be tunnel, or they may be losing part of the right side or the left side. The reduced visual acuity like we talked about. They may have depth perception issues, so they may have trouble judging how deep a step or a curb is. They may have trouble with light-dark adaptation. So for a lot of our older clients, it's hard when you are outside and it's really sunny and then you come inside, your eyes adjusting to that difference in light. As you get older, your pupils do not react as quickly. So when you're outside in the bright sun, your pupils get really small to reduce how much light is getting into your eye. When you come inside, your pupils need to open up to allow more light to come in. But the pupils don't react as quickly, one, as you get older, and two, when you have an eye disease. And then reduced color perception. Our color is on the cone cells on the macula, and so our patients are gonna have more difficulty seeing black from navy or brown, or they may have trouble with greens and blues. So, difficulty matching clothing. So when would you refer to us at Envision for low vision rehabilitation? Well, for me, for occupational therapy to see a client, a patient, their vision has to be worse than 20/70 and they're better CNI, so they don't have to be legally blind. They just have to have a visual impairment that's affecting their vision, their function. So worse than 20/70 and their better eye, and that is with contacts, glasses, surgery, or they have to have proof of a blind spot, and we'll talk about blind spots in a second. But a scotoma is a fancy word for a blind spot in their vision. So they've got to have the acuity requirements, or they have to have a field defect, whether it is glaucoma or some other eye disease that's causing tunnel vision. And it doesn't actually have to be less than 20 degrees. It can be any kind of field impairment. And we'll talk about strokes, but strokes, if you have a stroke, you can also affect your vision too. So some of the common causes of visual impairment that we see in our clinic is macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, glaucoma, retinitis pigmentosa, which is a genetic inherited disease that causes tunnel vision. Lots of neurological causes. It could be from a stroke, a brain injury, trauma, from a car accident, removal of a brain tumor, any of those things. Or it could be a congenital eye condition. They were born with visual impairment. Many times their vision will remain stable over the years, or their vision can progress. And with technology, devices and equipment change throughout the years. So we can have patients that come in that have been low vision or blind since they were born, but the types of equipment that were available when they were young are way different now. So they want to come in and see what's new, what technology is out there. So which eye disease is the leading cause of vision loss in older adults? Do you guys have any ideas of which of one of those? Sorry? Glaucoma. Actually, the number one is macular degeneration. So that is the leading cause of vision loss in older adults. Many times I'll refer to it as AMD, which is advanced macular degeneration. So some statistics or facts about macular degeneration. Over 11 million Americans have macular degeneration, and by 2050, they expect that number to increase to 22 million. It's an age-related eye disease. So only 2% of people the age 50 to 59 have it, but when you get to age 75, it's 30%. It is possible to have it in youth. There is a juvenile form of macular degeneration called Stargardt's, but the majority of people that have macular degeneration are older. So if you think about what settings in nursing that you are going to be practicing in, if you are working in long-term care or any of these retirement communities, there's a good chance of a third of them are going to have some form of macular degeneration. It is the leading cause of vision loss in Americans 60 years of age and older. There's two types of macular degeneration. There's dry and there's wet. The dry form is more common. There is no treatment available for it, but it is just basically a degeneration of the cells on the macula. The term wet comes from because there is leaking vessels on the back of the macula, and so that's where that wet term. It's not as common. Dry can turn into wet, so just because you have dry doesn't mean that you'll never have wet. But people with wet macular degeneration, they're going to notice a more sudden change in their vision. Dry is kind of a slow progression, but wet can change quickly. But there is treatment available for the wet macular degeneration. They do injections. So they are injecting a drug into the back of the macula that helps slow the leaky vessels and prevent that from happening. It doesn't mean that's a better form to have, though, because you have treatment. So just a few pictures. So these are pictures of the back of the macula. And the pictures on the upper left and in the middle is dry. So the areas that kind of look yellowish white, that's just the cells are deteriorating. It's all in the central. The other pictures, you can see that the images look a little bit red, and that's actually blood that's pooling on the back of the macula, and that's what they got to go in there and provide treatment for to stop that bleeding. I will say, too, when I first started in this field 18 years ago, the treatments for wet macular degeneration has changed dramatically. They used to do laser. They would have to inject dye and find where the bleeds were, and then they would actually shoot a laser to try to cauterize those vessels. They do these injections now, and they work way better. The prognosis for our wet macular degeneration patients is way better than what it used to be. So the effects, what we see for people with macular degeneration is it affects their central vision. So if you make a fist and you put it right in front of your nose, there's an area right in the center that you cannot see. You can see out to the side. Macular degeneration does not affect your peripheral vision. It just affects your central vision. But that's where your 20/20 vision is. That's where your sharp vision is. So it's going to create a blind spot in the central vision. It's going to cause distortion. It's going to reduce your ability to see detail, ability to see color, and you need a lot of light. That's a huge thing. You need a lot of light when you have macular degeneration. One of the most important things, though, that I tell my patients is that you will not go blind from macular degeneration, because that is a fear. You don't want to go blind. It affects the center, but it doesn't affect your peripheral vision. So a lot of times that, reduces the anxiety when you learn that you're not going to go blind. Risk factors, it usually occurs after the age of 50. Like I said, there is a juvenile form, but majority of the time it's after 50. It is hereditary, so if you have parents that have macular degeneration, you have a 15% greater chance of developing it yourself. It's more common in women than men, but it's because women live longer. So it's more common in European descent, light-colored eyes, light-colored hair. Other risk factors is sunlight. I think people nowadays wear sunglasses and eye protection a lot better than what they used to. But it's important to protect your eyes from the sunlight and the UV rays. High blood pressure, a bad diet, smoking, poor circulation, that all increases your risk like it increases your risk for all other kinds of medical issues. Some of the things that you can do to help try to prevent that is having a good diet. So lots of fruit and vegetables, fish, omega-3s. There's a lot of supplements out there on the market that they market to help slow the progression that have lutein and zeaxanthin. Those are just supplements that can help slow the progression of macular degeneration. Having good exercise, wearing sunglasses, and then stopping all of those other bad habits. The AMSLR grid is a screening tool that is available for people to be able to monitor their vision themselves. Many of the eye doctors or ophthalmologists may pass out these AMSLR grids. Many times it may be a magnet or you can find it online, but the way that you use the AMSLR grid, so the picture on the left is what it looks with normal vision. What on the right is what it may look like for somebody with macular degeneration that has that blind spot or that scotoma in their central vision. So the way that you use this tool is you stand about 10 inches from it, you cover one eye, you look towards the black dot in the middle, and you check to make sure there's no wavy lines or areas missing. And then you check each eye. I think it's also an important screening tool to even use for people that already have eye disease like macular degeneration, because you can screen and make sure that you haven't had a sudden change in your vision as well. So usually the eye doctors say, it's good to do this every week or every other week just to kind of screen and make sure there hasn't been any significant changes in your vision. The next eye disease I'm going to talk about is diabetic retinopathy. That picture on the left doesn't look very clear, but it's supposed to. So diabetic retinopathy is common with diabetes where their blood sugars are not well controlled. The way it depicts, the way it presents is it creates multiple blind spots, almost like a Swiss cheese effect with their vision. So what happens with diabetic retinopathy is there's these weak vessels that develop on the back of the retina, and then those vessels leak, and then they cause hemorrhages, and they can be in multiple areas, and that's what causes that Swiss cheese effect. It's not just the central, it can be all over. The way that they treat the diabetic retinopathy is with the injections, but sometimes they still have to go in there and do that laser treatment to try to stop those vessels from bleeding. So it's going to cause a lot of the same issues. You're going to have reduced acuity, you're going to have reduced contrast, you're going to need more light. Glare is often an issue as well for diabetic retinopathy. I feel like I see this more in my younger population. You can develop diabetic retinopathy later on in life, but I feel like the people that have really profound vision loss tend to be a little bit younger. Stroke. So you can have vision loss after a stroke as well. The way it presents is either we call a quadrantenopsia or hemianopsia. So they're going to lose vision in half of their field. So their eyeball is actually healthy. The damage is in the brain, so it's the pathway. So you can have half of the vision missing, or you can have a quadrant. The important thing to know is it's actually in both eyes. A lot of times they think it's just, if they have a right field loss, they feel like it's just the right eye, but it's actually both eyes that are missing visual field. You can also have double vision because of weakness in the ocular muscles. Your eyes aren't working together, so it can cause double vision. You have balance issues because of the double vision. A lot of mobility issues. If you are missing half of your vision, it's really easy to bump into a doorway, to miss a doorway. They get disoriented. They're not sure. They can get turned around even in their own house because they're missing half of their visual field. They'll have difficulty with reading as well. So Imagine if you have a left field loss, you're reading to the right. When you get to the end of the line, you got to find where the beginning of the next line is. And if you're missing part of your vision, sometimes it's hard to find the margin. So those are all things that we work on training in the clinic with. Here's glaucoma. So glaucoma is sometimes called the silent disease because usually you do not have any physical symptoms until the end stages of it. Glaucoma is due to increased pressure in the eye that therefore puts pressure on the optic nerve. It usually presents more as affects your peripheral vision. So creates that tunnel vision. Glaucoma, though, is one of the eye diseases that there's treatment available. So either with surgery, laser treatments, or eye drops. It is actually treatable. So this is really important. Patients need to get to the eye doctors. That's where they do that puff test, or they use that little device that touches your eye that we don't like, but they are checking the pressure in your eye. If it is high, they can usually treat it. So that's where it's so important to get your annual eye checks. But it will also cause the field defects. It can also encroach on that central vision, decreased acuity, contrast sensitivity, glare. So this is kind of like we're repeating like a broken record here, but a lot of these eye diseases cause some of the similar things, but this one is peripheral. But it can lead to total blindness as well if it is not treated. Cataracts. So this is one thing that we actually don't see a lot of in the clinic. Interesting enough, though, in third world countries, this is not treated enough. So people, third world countries can have blindness or low vision because of cataracts, where it's very treatable. But a lot of times our clients will have issues with glare. So I saw a patient yesterday that had macular degeneration, but she also has cataracts. And her cataracts are not quite ready to be removed yet. So she's experiencing a lot of glare issues, and she needs a lot of light. So majority of the times, this is something that's fixable, though. You can have surgery and you can remove those cataracts. So one of my little soapboxes is make sure that you're getting your annual eye exams. Most of the people, it's recommended every year or two. If you have an eye disease, it's every year or maybe even more frequently than that. Also realize it takes a little bit of time to adjust to your new eyeglasses. And as your patients get older and they have bifocals, it's a little bit harder to learn to adjust. You have to be aware of those bifocals with mobility, such as going downstairs, because if you look through your bifocal, everything is blurry. So you almost have to tuck your chin a little bit more so you're looking through the top portion of your glasses. So adjusting those bifocals sometimes increases your risk of falls as well. Also, don't forget to clean your eyeglasses. Something pretty simple. The other thing and I saw this a lot when I worked in inpatient rehab, and many times my patients in inpatient rehab did not have their glasses because the family was afraid they would lose their glasses. So any of you that wear contacts or glasses, can you imagine trying to function and participate in rehab without your glasses? So it's important. Have your glasses, make sure they're clean. Wear sunglasses. We look at a lot of different colors of tints in our clinic. So many of you that wear and especially after cataract surgery, or when you go to the eye doctor and you get dilated, they give you those super dark black sunglasses. That helps when you're dilated because the lights are really bright, but you can't see very well to walk around in them. So we look at lots of different colors of tints. A lot of our patients like this kind of brown amber color. Even that yellow color can be useful for indoor use if our patients have issues with glare and like lights above bother their eyes. That yellow helps cut that glare, but they can still see. Cloudy days, maybe they're still bothered by a little bit of glare, even if it's a cloudy day. You don't want to put the dark sunglasses on because that cuts your vision even more, but the yellow can help kind of reduce that glare a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about the home and what can we do to adapt and modify our home. Lighting is one of the most important things that we talk about. As we age, as you get older, you need 10 times more light than you did when you were young. So I tell my patients, remember when you were a kid and you could sit in your dark closet and read a book? And now, as you get older, you're turning on all the lights. You just need more light as we get older. And, it's more than just having bright lights. You have to look at glare as well. So it's like this catch-22. You have to create light, but you have to make sure it's not too bright. And the best way we find to do that is doing it with task lighting. And I have a slide that will show lamps, but being able to adjust the light so the light is going right where you need it and it's not shining right in your eyes. But it's also important to have good ambient lighting throughout the home. And I've been in homes that have no overhead lighting, so they are dependent on lamps. And so, okay, where are we going to put the lamps to create good lighting throughout the room? I had a patient the other day that he was having trouble seeing to find his way to the bathroom at night. His vision was really reduced. They had night lights up. Night lights are really important. They were still having trouble, so we discussed putting in the LED rope lights along the hallway. So he had that light to follow as a path. So lighting is really important. We go out in the homes, we look at the lighting to figure out ways to improve lighting at home. But then we also look at the task lights. Like I said, it's really important to be able to get a good gooseneck light that puts the light right on what they're working on. A lot of homes, they rely on just the overhead lights, but that's just not enough. They need more light closer to what they're working on. It's also important to look at the position of where the lamp is at. So if they are using it to write checks or make a grocery list, you actually want to have the lamp on the opposite side of your writing hand. Otherwise, it's going to create a shadow. So we look at positioning and where the light is at. What type of bulb are we using nowadays? Majority of bulbs out there are LEDs. I feel like that's really where it's going. But you're going to still have some fluorescent bulbs in the homes as well. The LEDs last a lot longer, but they also don't get hot, which is really nice. It's a lot cheaper. They don't cost, the cost to buy an LED bulb isn't what it used to be. The other really nice thing, and we have a lot of lamps at work at my office that you can change how bright the light is, so you can adjust the brightness. You can also adjust the color temperature. So you can have a warm LED or a cool LED or somewhere in between. There's not a recommendation that a certain eye disease needs a certain color temperature. It's just whatever's comfortable for them. But also think about just natural light. If they can tolerate, having the curtains open, great. If that bothers them, maybe looking at the sheer curtains to kind of, reduce some of the glare, but it still allows light to come in the house. You even think about the color of the walls. If you have rooms that have dark colored paint, that actually absorbs the light, but if you have light colored walls, it reflects and makes the room appear brighter. We want to talk about contrast a little bit more. So contrast is how light can the object be seen relative to its background. I talked about the coffee mug as an example. Curbs are a really good example too. If you have a gray curb on a gray street, that can be really hard to see for somebody with a visual impairment. It may look completely flat to them. The other big one I see is in parking lots, you have those parking blocks that you pull up to, and many times they are not painted. And I've had a lot of patients trip and fall over those because they just cannot see them. So anything that needs to be seen in your home will be seen better when it contrasts with the background. So here's an example. There's a kitchen on the left, and I know white kitchens are really, really nice, but they can make things really hard to see. So the kitchen on the picture on the right shows how we've used some contrast to make it a little bit more visible. So the darker countertops, we have a little task lamp on the counter. Even thinking of something as simple as a cutting board. So if you have somebody that's cutting up onions and they're doing it on a white cutting board, it's really hard to see. But if you get a black cutting board, then voila, you can see the onions a lot better. We do a lot of adaptations even on like the microwave there. We have what are called bump dots. These are these little round sticker adhesive dots that we can put on their buttons or on the buttons on the microwave. And so they're raised and so they can feel it, but then we try to use colors that contrast. So we have orange bump dots, we have white, we have black, whatever color we need to do so they can see where those buttons are at. Other things you can consider, you know, if as simple as this may seem, but somebody that moves into like a retirement center and it's a new home for them, finding a light switch where it is, because usually the faceplates match the wall. I saw a really cool thing the other day, and I'm going to order some of this because I thought this was really cool, but there is glow-in-the-dark tape that glows, I think it said for 8 to 10 hours. But imagine, you could put it around a light switch. You could put it on the edge of the stairs. There's so many places that you could use this glow-in-the-dark tape that I'm going to get some of. You could paint a door frame, so it's a different color than the wall so they can actually see where the door frame is. Mark the edges of the steps, like I said. Avoiding patterns. So on this picture, there's a white fork on that checkered tablecloth, and it's really hard to see. So I try to stay away from patterns as much as possible because it's visually difficult to perceive what you're seeing. So keep things as simple as possible. Here's another. Avoid clutter. So if you're visually impaired, can you imagine how hard it would be to find something in a cluttered house? Think of even like the refrigerator. You know, my kids go and they just shove everything into the fridge and how hard it is to find something. So organization is key for our patients. We need to try to keep things as simple and organized as possible so it's easier for them to figure out where things are at. Everything has a home. Everything has a place that it goes. So again, make sure there's good room lighting, good contrast with the furniture. I went out to this home one time that everything was white. The couch was white. The coffee table was glass. The kitchen table was glass. The kitchen counters and cabinets, everything was white. So I had them put a dark colored blanket or throw on the back of the couch so they could see where the couch was. I actually took colored tape and put it around the edges of the coffee table and the table so they could see the edge. And then they got colored placemats to go on the glass tabletop as well. I put colored tape on the corners of the hallway going back to the bedroom so he could see where the hallway was at because everything was white. So you can also remove the coffee tables. That's a huge fall risk. It's easy to trip on. You want to try to position the TV and the computer away from windows because that can create a lot of glare. It's actually easier to see the computer or the TV if the shades are closed because then it's going to make the screen brighter. Kind of like in here, they've dimmed the lights to make the screen stand out brighter. Avoid clutter, like we talked about. The sheer curtains or blinds to reduce glare, and then the color of the walls. So here are some stairs that are really hard. So here's a good example of a huge fall risk. You can hardly see on the left where the edges of the carpeted stairs are. Picture on the right, there are stairs going into that brick wall. They are there. Here's another good example of a hallway or a stairwell going, but it's super dark. It's like a stairwell to the black hole. So what are ways that we can try to improve this? What can we do to make the stairs easier? Getting handrails. Both sides is better than one. One side is better than nothing, but handrails on the walls, lighting, marking the edges of the steps. We keep orange duct tape in our backpacks. So when we go out to patients' homes, we use orange duct tape all the time to mark the edges of the steps. Just makes, even if you're marking the top and the bottom. Also being aware of where the handrail is to the last step. Does it stop right at the last step? So when you get to the end of the end of the handrail, you know you're at the bottom step. I have a lot of patients that count their steps too. They know exactly how many steps it takes to get to their basement. Be careful of pets. Oh, I went out to a patient's house today, and she had beige colored carpet, and her poodle was the same color as the carpet. So it's really, that's a challenging thing. I mean, you could get a little bright colored handkerchief, like a little scarf or something, or a colored collar or something. My dog is black, and so I have an LED flashing collar that I put on her every night when I let her go outside so I can see her and find her. So really be aware of the pets. I am a strong advocate of having pets because I think it's great for your mental health, but you just have to be careful with them. Wipe up spills right away. When you're walking outside, make sure you're always looking ahead. Consider using a cane or a walker for safety because those uneven surfaces can be really a challenge. Some other things we can do, make sure you keep the furniture in the same place. Don't move things around. And like I said, everything needs to go back. I had a patient that told me on Sundays his entire family would come over to eat dinner at his house. And then he said he spent the whole next day rearranging his refrigerator the way he wanted it because he couldn't find anything. So everything has a home. You need to avoid throw rugs at home, avoid the low coffee tables in the middle of the room, and avoid clutter on the floor. What else can we do to improve independence with our patients? There's a lot of equipment that we use that is just non-optical. Using a pen that writes darker and bolder so they can read back their handwriting. We have tablets, paper that has darker colored lines so they can actually see where the lines are at. We have high contrast measuring cups or color-coded measuring cups, the large print pill bottles or boxes. I love the prepackaged medications now. There's a lot of pharmacies that do prepackaged meds, and that is so much easier. There's also a program that through Walmart, CVS, Sam's Club, it's called Script Talk. What they do, and it's a free service if you get your meds from those pharmacies, they put these little electronic tags on the bottom of the bottles. They just look like little stickers, and they send you a speaker and to the home, and all you do is hold your bottle above that speaker and push the button, and it reads everything to you that's on the bottle. And so that's a free service that's available through Walmart pharmacies, CVS mail order, or if you're a veteran, you can get that through the VA too. Large button phones for people that still have landline phones at home. They make all kinds of big button phones. They make large print checks. I know a lot of people, a lot of their bills are auto-drafted or they pay on the computer, but I still know a lot of people that write checks. So you can check with your bank and get large print checks. Of course, sunglasses, the bump dots, those are the little dots I mentioned that we can mark appliances so they know where to turn a dial or where their buttons are. Talking clocks, or nowadays, just get an Alexa or a Google Home or Siri. You can ask all of those, what time is it? You can use Alexa for so many things, setting an alarm, calling out using voice dial. So there's so many things you can use Alexa for. There's a lot of things you can do for leisure as well. They have large print playing cards, large print bingo cards, color-coded dominoes. They actually make dominoes. Instead of having the dots, they have numbers. So it actually says 6 or it says 8, which is a little bit easier than trying to count the actual dots. So we look at leisure too. What's important to you? What do you want to be able to do? But then, of course, we look at optical equipment as well. So we assess our patients for magnifiers, and these are just some different pictures of optical equipment. There's magnifiers called stand magnifiers that lay flat. Those are great for people if they have trouble holding a magnifier, or maybe they have tremors from Parkinson's disease, or we have higher powered reading glasses. And then all of our video magnifiers, these are all digital magnifiers. I did bring a few of these, so if any of you want to see these, and I have some over in my bag. These are electronic magnifiers. So basically there's a camera on the back, and you set this on whatever you want to read, and you can enlarge it. You can also change the color of the print. So standard color may be hard to see, but if you do a white on a black background, that might be easier for you to see. Downside is these are very expensive. They can range anywhere from $500 up to $4,000, so they're not cheap. And then, of course, technology. There's lots of ways to make our technology accessible for our patients. You know, my PC right here, it has a magnifier, a zoom magnification built into it. It's no special software I have to download. So we go out and we work with our patients on teaching them how to use accessibility on their computers. Sometimes it's as simple as connecting their laptop to a bigger monitor. I mean, look here, for example. So I'm going, from my 16-inch screen to this giant, so it makes everything bigger. So at home, connecting your laptop to a 32-inch TV, you triple the size of the magnification just like that without even having to use any software. The tablets have accessibility too. So probably 3/4 of my patients, when I see them the first time, I'm like, let me see your phone. Let me see what I can do to make it easier. Because I'll go into their settings, I'll make their font size bigger, I'll make their contrast darker. I may invert and do the black background with the white letters. I see what makes it the easiest for them to see. So lots of accessibility options on PCs and Macs. With the smartphones, you have zoom features on both Android and Apple products, so you can zoom in and make things bigger. They have screen readers, so the Apple products is called VoiceOver. The Android product, the phones or tablets, it's called TalkBack. So it's reading to you everything that's on the screen. And you learn to navigate the screen with what we call gestures. So it's with swipe forward, swipe back, double tap, different ways. So, and there's a ton of apps out there. I mean, I could do a whole session on useful apps. But this one I have that I'm showing on the screen is called CNAI, and it's available for Apple or for iPhone. But what it does is it uses the camera on the phone and it puts text into speech. So it reads to you whatever print is behind the camera. Or it has a barcode scanner, so you scan the barcode and it tells you what the product is. And it's a free app that's available for iPhone. So we do a lot of training with technology. We do a lot with resources. So we get people signed up for audiobooks, which is free through the library. It comes out of Emporia. It's all through the mail. They upload books for them. They send them the player. Kansas has a program called the TAP program that they can, if they're eligible based on income, they can get a free big button phone for the house, or there is some reimbursement funds, $450 towards purchasing a smartphone. So if they want to get an iPhone or they want to get a smart device, they can do that. The audio reader is a resource where there's volunteers that read the newspaper to them. You can access it through Alexa, you can access it through the computer, or they send you an old-fashioned radio that you turn on. We're always looking at funding. So all of these magnifiers and devices that I showed you, those are not reimbursable, or insurance does not pay for those. So, and for many people, you know, it's hard to purchase a $75 magnifier for many of our patients. So we are always looking for funding sources. In Vision, we do have a grant called the Focus Project, and it provides funding for people that live in the counties. I have listed Sedgwick, Harvey, Butler, Sumner, and Cowley. You have to be over the age of 55, have a vision impairment, and live in one of those counties. Many times we can help with getting some type of equipment for them, whether it's a magnifier, sunglasses, something. And then we're always looking at transportation. You know, you live in Kansas. We are a rural state. We are so dependent on being able to drive. So it's really hard to give up your driver's license. So we are constantly looking for options for our patients. You know, Uber, Lyft. There's an app called GoGo Grandparent that allows you, as a younger person, to set up the Uber ride for your grandparent. It's a little bit more expensive than Uber, but allows you to do it. I know Harvey County has the Harvey County Interurban. They're all, you know, you have to pay out of pocket for those, so sometimes that can get expensive, but we try to look at those resources for you. So when to refer to us at Envision. If you see a patient that is having difficulty reading regular size print, they're having trouble reading their medicine bottle, they can't read their newspaper or their books, they can't read their mail, They're complaining about difficulty seeing the TV or recognizing somebody's face across the room. They're having difficulty walking around safely. Or has the eye doctor told them that they can no longer make their glasses stronger? That is usually when people come to see us, is the eye doctors have done everything they can do to improve their glasses as much as they can, and they still cannot correct them to where they want to be. So they come and see us. So come see us, ask for a referral. Here's our address. We're at 610 North Main in downtown Wichita. Our phone number is there. You can always, if you have somebody that thinks would benefit from services, you can always contact us. We can work on trying to get the referral for them. We do have a low vision ophthalmologist that practices in our building. So my services, I do require a referral from a doctor. It can be an optometrist or an ophthalmologist. So we can work with their doctors. They can come see our low vision ophthalmologist. There's a low vision optometrist in Wichita, Dr. Beck here in Newton. He refers a lot of patients to us. So, okay. Any questions about anything?
I think we've got a microphone, Sarah Scott.
Okay.
So we can bring it to you if don't have a strong voice. This is your chance to ask the expert.
No questions. I must have done a great job.
Yeah.
No.
I know that I used to work in acute care in the hospital setting, and then moving to geriatric care in a nursing home. One does encounter these vision things daily, minute by minute, and all of the ideas that Karen's given us on prevention of falls is so important. As you think about your practice, as you have been in clinicals perhaps, or if you're just now starting into nursing home as your first clinical, what things have you bumped into? Come on over here. Now that I'm done talking. No, I'm just asking some of the students if they think about where you've been, what you've seen, what you've encountered, and this is a good chance to ask a question, what a solution to that problem might be. If you have questions about the prevalence of falls, and I know that a fall for an 18-year-old isn't too much. You get up and you dust yourself off. A fall for someone my age or older, it has severe consequences. So it's a huge deal. So
I would say too, if you are seeing a patient in the hospital or in some kind of medical setting, it's really important. For example, you go in there, you taking them their medicine or dropping off food or whatnot, you need to tell them that it's there. Because if you just set it down on a table, they may not know that it's there. Tell them what's on their plate. At 12 o'clock you have this, at 6 o'clock you have this, your silverware is on the right. The other really important thing is when you enter the room, introduce yourself. Tell them who you are and that you're there, because they may not know that you even came in the room. And it can be scary for them, or they don't know who you are. So always introduce yourself when you walk into a space that has somebody that's blind or visually impaired, so they know who you are. Yes?
let me bring you the mic. One of our topics is hearing loss too, so some of us may not have very good hearing right now.
With the diabetic retinopathy, you said that there's injections to help with some of that vision loss. If you were to get the injections and they worked, is there anything that could make the vision loss worse after you complete the injections?
So with diabetic vision loss, it also has a lot to do with how well they're maintaining their blood sugars. So it's maintaining good blood sugars. The other thing is if they are actively hemorrhaging, having active bleeds, they need to stay away from heavy lifting, things like that, because that can increase the risk of having a bleed. So I had a patient years and years ago, and she was a radiology tech at the hospital and had diabetic retinopathy, and she couldn't figure out why she kept having bleeds, but she was constantly transferring patients. So it's really, one, when you are receiving injections or those shots, the retinal docs are going to have you coming in probably every 4 to 6 weeks. So, and many times, and I know I have a few patients in here, when you get injections, you may get 9, 12, 14 injections. It can be, they're going to keep doing it until they see that it's stabilized. But then it's really important to screen and monitor it to make sure that there isn't a significant change.
Here's a question. Here, pass this down.
Okay, so I know someone that works at Envision, and I think he might still be there. He's quite the character. But I didn't realize how much you all did there. Anyway, so I went to Dierks Bentley concert with him.
Okay.
And he's very independent. And one thing that I was concerned about when we walked in was they made him take his wallet back because it had a chain on it, but in my thought process, it was like he could hear it and he knew where it was at, but they made him take that back. And then he didn't want to go, he wanted to sit in the actual seat, and it was very dark.
Right.
So he held on to me, but I was really nervous about that. And so I'm just wondering for future, with whether it's patients or friends, what to do if they're very stubborn.
So one of the things that our mobility specialist, does he use a cane? I don't know if you used a white cane at all. Okay. But when you're in like an unfamiliar environment like that, or a busy environment like a concert or the mall or something, a lot of people choose to use what's called sighted guide, like you said, where he's holding. But the important thing, and I'm not a mobility specialist, but the important thing is they are holding on to you, and they're a half a step behind you. So you are going to bump into something before they do. If you're stepping down, they're going to feel your body dip down. So but you need to also alert them. Okay, we got to step down. We got another step down. Or when you start going down the stairs, and I know, like at Interest, it's very narrow and short steps, but you let them know, okay, we're at the bottom. Let them know ahead of time so they know they're at the bottom of the steps. Let them know when you get to the top of the steps, or they're going to keep going. So, but you guiding them is, I mean, it's very possible to be able to travel independently. But many times when you're in a new environment, you're still dependent on a guide to be there with you. Hope that helps.
Yeah, I think it was just hard too because everybody was watching and they were really nervous, but I knew what I was doing.
Yeah, yeah. And
I guess I'll push that away, understanding that I'm being a guide.
yes. And I mean, if he had his white cane out, I mean, that should let other people know that, he's visually impaired. I mean, it can be empowering to have that cane as well. And also because people don't think that you're drunk or, things like that. Because if you're stumbling around, do you want to walk around with more confidence? Or do you want people to wonder, why are you feeling around and stumbling and losing your balance?
Thank you for that question, and that's a great answer. We're kind of at our time limit. We want to stay on schedule for our next speaker, and we do want to take a little break in between. One of the things that answer reminds me of, though, that I want a quick question and a quick answer. I think sometimes as a caregiver, or even if I meet a stranger, I don't want to insult them by offering help. What's your advice on how forward should one be in encountering someone with low vision? And how much license do we take to say, okay, there are 3 steps here, or there's a wheelchair right in front of you, or, to avoid being insulting and to be helpful? Where's that happy medium? And should we just not worry about the insulting part?
I think it's fine to offer help, but you need to offer it and say, would you like me to help you? Ask them first if they want help, and they will tell you if they want, your help or not. I don't think it's insulting, and I don't think we don't want anybody falling. So there's many times that I'm like, oh, there's a wheelchair, there's something here in front of you. Do you care if I help you? Do you want to take my arm and let me help you? So I think it's fine. I don't think there's a problem at all. Yes. Yes.
Okay, well, Karen, thank you so much. Let's give her a round of applause for her sharing her expertise with us. Thank you very much. Karen has put some business cards and some Envision pamphlets out on the table, so help yourself to that. It'd be a great reference for you as you go throughout your practice. I am going to make a quick announcement. If you've never been in this building, there are restrooms out this direction and around the curve. There's a water fountain the other direction. And we do have some refreshments. Now, I don't know if anybody of you noticed, but on the posters we put up, there was a QR code to scan so that we'd have a head count. But a great number chose not to do the QR code. So our refreshments may not go as far as we had hoped. So there are cookies and then like Chex Mix out here, water, coffee. It will last as long as it lasts. So hopefully next time we'll have everybody scan the QR code. And we're going to take about a 15-minute break. At the end of the break, we are going to announce the winners of our raffle for those 4 baskets that you saw. And you must be in this auditorium to win. When I call your name, if you're in the hallway, too bad, so sad, you lose. Okay? So everybody take a break now. Be back in 15 minutes. Thank you. So many of us just don't even have a clue why it's busy.
Yes, and it
That is really
is all different. Everybody's different.
So, may I hold you?
I meant to mute that thing. It's live. I just meant to mute it so we're not advertising. Gonna do a little webcam for the Zoom so the audience can look at so the speaker can look at the audience. So I think actually put Sarah webcam. So she's up there ready for so the speaker can look at the audience. So the lady in the flower. Yeah, yeah. You also mute so she's up there ready for the speaker can look at the audience. So the lady in the flower. Yeah, yeah. You also mute so she's up there
We're about 1 minute from starting, so if you want to find your seat, please do. All right, let's get started. Before we move on to our next featured speaker, we have promised to give away the prizes. In order to make things fun, we decided we would create a little swag basket. So this is a combination of gifts from Kidron Bethel Village and Bethel College thrown together for your enjoyment. So 4 lucky people that are sitting or standing within this facility will win. So let's get to the first one here. And I'm not gonna look. Blair Logan Bell. No, oh, just kidding. Trinity Young. Where are you, Trinity? Stand up, wave your arms. We want to see you. Okay, there she is. Okay, it'll come to you. Yeah, we don't want you to trip down the stairs. Oh, by the way, I was chastised for not chastised, but corrected, for not seeing who I am. For those that are vision impaired, I should have been more sensitive because there's a gentleman in that category that said, who was that gentleman speaking? And it's Blair Logan Bell. I'm the director of nursing at Kidron. So that's that. Okay, Trinity, the next one. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. The second lucky person, Keith Harder. Keith, look it, there he is. While Keith gets his prize, the basket that you're seeing is actually an insulated picnic basket. It's not just it's of high quality stuff here, folks. Somebody thought that if they paired theirs up with another person, it would double their chances, I think. This person is Don Penner. Don. Did Don stick? There he is. He's clear in the back. Blank. Oh, that's yours. Okay, and the fourth and final winner of the prize tonight is Hannah Harris. Hannah. Okay, congratulations to you. Glad that you got a little token for this, and you'll remember it always. At this time, I'll turn the mic over to Sarah Massam. She is employed here at Bethel College in the nursing program, and she will introduce our next speaker. At the end of Angela's presentation, there will be an opportunity for questions. So as you listen to her presentation, you might start formulating questions if that comes to mind. Thank you.
All right, Angela, can you hear me? This is Angela, sorry. Sorry. Fabulous. So my name is Sarah Mason. I am the Assistant Director of Nursing here at Bethel College. And it is my honor to introduce our second speaker of the evening, Dr. Angela Alexander. Let me read you just a quick bio. She is actually joining us from Australia. And it's already Friday. I did my math. It took me a long time to figure out what time it was in Australia. So she's joining us, and it's daylight, so that's good. It's nice and dark here. So, all right. So Angela Alexander earned her Doctor of Audiology from the University of Kansas in 2010 and specializes in diagnosing and treating auditory processing disorder. Her TEDx talk, Escaping the Hidden Prison of Auditory Processing Disorder, was the most watched TEDx worldwide in September of 2021. She also hosts Between Two Ears podcast and directs the Auditory Processing Institute, where she trains audiologists and speech-language pathologists to provide ADP services. She's also created an online and searchable map to help clients find the help that they need at apdsupport.com. A fun fact about Angela, she did grow up in Newton, and she even went to Bethel College preschool. And I do have one more fact that Angela didn't share with me, but I know this about her. So this last year, she is a Newton High School graduate and was inducted as the 2022, I gotta get this right, Distinguished Alumni for Newton High School. So I did know that about her, and she didn't add it about herself, and I thought that was important to share. So we'll welcome Angela.
Thank you so much. It is an absolute pleasure to be with you. For some reason, I didn't anticipate that I would be speaking in this auditorium, the same auditorium where I performed in Annie and The Wizard of Oz. I always thought I was going to have a speaking role on this stage, but I just had to go through a lot of different steps to get there. They didn't want me to do any singing before. I wonder what that was about. But it is an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm gonna use a short video just to make sure that the sound is working on my PowerPoint presentation. This is a video from New Zealand. This guy is quite clever. Let's see if you can hear it.
Hey Mila, can you just go finish tidying your room? Yeah.
A few moments later.
Hey, so you finished your room, yeah? You never told me to tidy my room. So you didn't hear when I was like, go and tidy your room? What? So I had the groceries and I left them in the back of the car, and so the ice cream. Did you say ice cream? Can I have some? No. Ugh!
Okay, could you hear that? Can I get a thumbs up? Wonderful, and I can see you, that's fantastic. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about my Newton connection before I get into my favorite topic of all time. So shout out to my mom. Is she there in the crowd? Can I have her stand up? All right. There she is. This is my mother. She is the one to blame if you hate this presentation. She will take all of just kidding, that's perfect. Wonderful. Mom, thank you for being there. And can everyone give my mother a hug from me, since I won't get to do it until Thanksgiving. It is so nice to have one of my biggest fans in the audience, because I'm also a big fan of her. My parents met through Mennonite Central Committee in Bolivia. I grew up in New Creation Fellowship Church. I attended Bethel College Preschool, Lincoln Elementary School, and Santa Fe Middle School. And Newton High School, I was class of 1999. And some of you may know me because I worked at Taco Tico for quite a long time. I've resigned since, but I ate my fair share of Choco tacos, if you know what I mean. This is my mom when she's looking quite surprised. You can also see there's a Bethel College emblem here, so we can tell she's legitimate. Mom, absolutely love you. So glad that you're here today. A few of you in the audience may have heard my other story. And what I would like to say is there were some really amazing humans in Newton who picked up when things weren't quite right for me. And I just want to say to anyone in the crowd to trust your instincts when something doesn't seem right, and do whatever you can to help another person. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just ignore me. It's just a bunch of drama. But I also want to thank all of the people who've given me so much support over the past few years from Newton. I cannot believe how great that community is and can be when we all stand together. Okay, this is me, and this is what I look like when I have no pores on my face because my friend took my photo and polished it all up. Isn't that wonderful? So I have done a little bit since I left Taco Tico. I graduated from the University of Kansas in 2010. I have two businesses. One is called Auditory Processing Institute, where I train my colleagues how to test and treat the disorder I'm about to show you. I also have something called APD support, and it's online ear workouts to improve your auditory processing. I have a podcast called Between Two Ears. And when I did my TEDx talk last year, actually, can you raise your hand if you have seen my TEDx in the audience? Okay, about 4 of you. Fantastic. Well, I was hoping for about 2,000 views, and last week we hit 1 million. What? So that was really exciting and completely unexpected. My intentions for this talk is to show things you may have never seen. I want to increase your empathy for people with hearing and listening difficulties, and I really want to blow your minds. And I'm actually going to tell you about a little bit of a secret that I've got going on in the second half of this lecture. So make sure that even if you find the first half boring, you stay awake for the second. This is what I learned from my mentor. Auditory processing is what the brain does with what the ears hear. So when there is an error in this process, it's called an auditory processing disorder. So an auditory processing disorder has less to do with the ears and more to do with the brain. How many people here have had a hearing test? Can you raise your hand? Okay, fantastic. Oh, now if I said, raise your hand when you hear the beep, just kidding. So you know what I'm talking about. A standard hearing test is checking to see the quietest you hear each sound. The things I specialize in are far more complex than that. I'm looking to see how the brain understands speech. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you a brief overview of auditory skills. I'm gonna show you an auditory processing evaluation. I'm gonna show you some therapies, and I'm also gonna show you actual clients receiving the therapy. Okay, all of you in this room who just said that you've had a hearing test before, you have had a test of awareness. Do you know that sound is there? If you know that sound is there, you are aware of it. If you are not aware of it, you might need hearing aids or a cochlear implant, or the brand new out on the street this week, over-the-counter hearing aids. We can talk about that at the end if you have any questions. So awareness tells us, are you aware of sound? And we use devices to boost that if you are not aware of sound. The next level is discrimination. Now listen to these two sounds, B, D. Are you aware of those? Can you hear them? Raise your hand if you can hear them. Fantastic, good job, y'all. So you are aware of the sounds, but then can you hear the difference between these two sounds? B, D. They are similar, but they are not the same. We need that in order to get to the next level, which is called identification. Not only do you know that two sounds are different, do you know that B is B and D is D? And you need all of these to get to the highest level, which is called comprehension, understanding what you hear. Now, it's very easy to think that as soon as we put hearing aids on a person, they are going to understand what is heard. But you can see that there are far more steps in the process than just awareness. You don't get to jump over those ones, even though my 4-year-old would like to try. 4-year-old joke. There was a study done in the 1990s, and they found that 1 in 5 adults who reported they had a hearing loss had a normal hearing test result. So these people often go to get their hearing tested because they'll say, oh, I think I might be partially deaf. And then they find out their hearing is essentially normal. And they leave feeling a little bit confused because the audiologist says, you have nothing to worry about. Well, this is my client named Jackie. And I actually talk about her in the TEDx talk, and she allowed me to share these videos with you and the rest of the world. I met her because she was having difficulty following conversation and background noise. She works in HR, and it's and apparently it's important to hear in those, but she was struggling to understand what she heard. She required subtitles to follow movies and follow dialogue on TV. And she reported learning difficulties as a child. Here are her hearing test results. And I'll just go over what basically I learned in grad school in about 5 minutes. So in October of 2013, she went and had a hearing test and found out that her hearing was essentially normal. She was very confused because that did not match her lived experience. In May of 2019, she went to her doctor and she said, "They said that I have normal hearing sensitivity, but I don't believe it because I feel like I have a significant hearing loss." So she went and had her hearing tested again, and it showed that her hearing was still within normal limits. So this is Jackie on the day that I met her. Look at how she is sitting, and look at how difficult it is for her to hear and understand what I have to say. I ask her a series of questions and see how she responds. Does a hearing problem cause you to feel embarrassed when you meet new people?
Yes.
Does a hearing problem cause you to feel frustrated when talking to members of your family?
Yes.
Do you have difficulty hearing or understanding coworkers, clients, customers, or wait staff?
Yes. Definitely.
Does a hearing problem cause you difficulty when visiting friends, relatives, or neighbors?
Yes.
Remember, she has a normal hearing test result. I was able to take her responses and quantify them. So basically, the questionnaire that I asked her has 25 questions. Every time she says yes, she gets 4 points. Every time she says sometimes, 2 points. And every time she says no, 0 points. Her score in June 2019 was 82 out of a possible 100 points. That is awful. 100 is awful, 0 is awesome. She was struggling and was highly impacted by auditory processing disorder. I'm gonna show you one of the tests that we put her through. So this is a speech in noise test. In one ear, she's hearing words and background noise, and she has to repeat the words back. Listen to how quickly she's able to respond. Now, I'm only showing you a short section just for you to get the feel of what I hear in the clinic.
Sharp, 10, eight, can, boil, this, move.
Did that actually make you feel like you normally feel in a noisy situation?
It made me feel stressed, emotional, and frustrated. But the emotive response, that emotional response was exactly the same as what it's like to be in a social situation where I'm just guessing at words because I have no idea.
No clue. Listen to how quickly she responds.
Shove. 10. Eight. Camp. Oil. This. Do.
Could you hear a difference? Yeah. Take just a moment to say to someone next to you what you think it would feel like to have been Jackie before getting auditory training. What's one word? Did someone say embarrassed, frustrating, confusing, isolating? It would be an awful feeling. So these are Jackie's test results from the first time I met her. Normal, for the scientists out there in the room, is within one standard deviation, but it means that even up to 85% of adults could be outperforming Jackie on these tests. So it doesn't feel, so even normal may not feel normal to her. But you can see that she's failing by more than 3 standard deviations. She has a severe weakness on many of these tests. But after a round of auditory training, her results were within normal limits, which was amazing. Except, like I said, 85% of the population could still be outperforming her. So this is her, and I asked her some more questions, the same questions I asked on the first day after her auditory training. Notice how she's sitting. Does a hearing problem cause you difficulty when listening to TV or radio?
No.
Does it cause you to go shopping less often than you would like?
No.
No, it's not getting in the way of that.
No.
Does a problem or difficulty with your hearing upset you at all?
No, not now.
Does a hearing problem cause you to talk to family members less often than you would like?
No.
Do you feel that any difficulty with your hearing limits or hampers your personal or social life?
No.
Okay, did you notice that she still couldn't make eye contact with me? She looked more relaxed, more comfortable in her skin, but she still found it really distracting to watch my lips and also listen to me at the same time. So this testing was nearly 2 years ago. Last year, when I did the TEDx talk, I was given 1 ticket of a person who could come along to the talk with me, and I asked her to be my special guest. After we went to that talk, we got together, and I had a debrief with her. See how she's doing now.
I was really honoured to be your guest. There was one part where you show the comparative results and the whole audience just went, oh, and I was like, I know. And because everybody around me, they get how amazing it is.
What was it like to watch your own video again?
I felt really sorry for that poor woman that was going through that first test. I remember how exhausted I was at the end of that testing. I was so tired of feeling worthless, you know? It was the first part of my journey of returning to who I was supposed to be. And then I watched the second video and I was like, oh yeah, there I am. But that's not who I am now because I've moved forward again. The big thing for me is both of those people look so much older than I do.
So now, have you done any more auditory training, like formalized auditory training, since you did the 12 weeks?
Nope. No, I haven't. The APD diagnosis and the therapy did a couple of things. The first thing was that it acknowledged that I wasn't making it up. And it affirmed to me that my intuition was correct, that what I had been experiencing was not normal.
We are a year and a half from when we did your retest. So how do you feel like your processing is going now?
I feel as though my ears work better than most normal people. I pick up a lot more detail now, and I'm pretty sure that normal people don't.
What would you say to a person who says auditory processing disorder doesn't exist or it can't be treated?
I have lived it. And I know that pre-treatment, I was not making up my symptoms. And I didn't just magically start paying more attention after I had therapy. I was still the same person, but I stopped being a person in pain.
Would you consider yourself still to have an auditory processing disorder?
That's a really good question. Would I? No.
So you're probably wanting to see what auditory training looks like, and I am going to show you that with some clients in the next section.
I was really
So I actually did testing. I asked her those questions, and the first time her score was 82 out of 100, awful. The second time I asked her those questions right before she started therapy, it was 84, so a similar response. After therapy, her score was 30, 24, 14, and then 2 years after therapy, her score is only 2. The closer to 0, of course, the better. While I'm talking about auditory processing in adults and in the aging, thanks to the Symposium for an emphasis on aging, but these problems can happen across the lifespan, and they're also quite common. So there are about 100 people in this room, so about 5 of you may understand what I'm talking about to a deeper, more personal level. Now, if you said yes mentally to any of those questions she answered, and you haven't had a hearing test, we probably should get that done first. There was some thoughts in my profession about, should we test children younger than 7? But if we want all children to read by 7, and if we know that auditory skills underpin early literacy, why should we wait to treat auditory skills until after 7? I started auditory training with my mom's favorite grandchild, don't tell the other ones, when she was 10 months old. This is Isabel Quinn, and this is her at 1 year and 10 months. See what you think of this.
Sounds! Whoa, do you know any of these sounds? Why? Yee, yee. Cool. What else do you know? Oh, cool. Hey, awesome. What about this guy? What is that? It's R. You know. Whoa, what's that one? What's that one? A. How about this one? Q, that's right. E. How about this one? B. 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 How about this one? S. That's right. Snake. That's right. Snakes start with S. What about N? Smeagol. Smeagol starts with S too. That's right. Do this?
She is a Kiwi, so it's okay for her to be a Lord of the Rings fan. Okay, so there is someone who has found a way to measure how we hear through electrodes. And I'm gonna show you just a 1-minute video showing how she does that. But the cool thing is, we may be able to assess auditory processing abilities at birth. So this is Nina Kraus. She's an absolute legend. And just listen to this 1-minute video. I hope you find it as mind-blowing as I do.
The frequency following response is a physiologic response that is obtained by delivering sound in the ear, and we are able to measure a response that actually resembles the stimulus very well. So this is the sound wave, and here is the brain wave. It gives us tremendous precision in sound processing, and the person who is getting their response measured does not have to perform a task, even though it is rooted in the brainstem, really reflects reflects the entire brain and reflects what we have learned in our life in sound. If you play a sound and you record from a single neuron, you see the neuron will respond. Now, if you teach the animal that the sound has meaning, so here we have trumpet means more carrots, so the animal learns that something will happen when the sound occurs. The animal is the same, the sound is the same, but the brain has changed. So here's the frequency following response. We deliver sound into the ear, and using just 3 scalp electrodes, we can measure a response that looks like and even sounds like. So you can hear that the sound wave and the brain wave actually sound like each other. We can analyze the response that we get, the brain wave, by doing a Fourier analysis. It reflects how good a job the brain does at processing different sound ingredients, and it reflects our experience in sound.
Okay, I hope you actually found that minorly mind-blowing, that we can actually record exactly how the brain is processing these sounds. Now keep this in mind for later, because I'm gonna take this to the next level. So, how did we get these outcomes? How have we been able to improve people's auditory processing? This is the approach that I was taught by my mentor, Dr. Jack Katz. We look at what the problem is. We look at the symptoms that a person might have. We compare these to our test findings, and then we come up with solutions. I am a specialist in something called decoding. Decoding is the ability to quickly and accurately digest speech. How quick are you to know what you are hearing? There are some other categories that I'm not going to go over, but it includes difficulties hearing in background noise and short-term memory problems, organizing what you hear, and integrating what you hear. Just take this in, don't worry about details. There are professionals who do know how to help you with this. Let's talk about decoding. The problem is that people have difficulties recognizing speech, beginning at the speech sound level. When you say B and D to them, they may not know that B is B and D is D. I'm going to show you a symptom where speech can be indistinct or unclear. If a person can't hear these sounds clearly or recognize them, their production of those sounds may not be clear. Okay, here is a sample of a client who has something called pachygyria. While he's a teenager, I want you to see if you can understand what he is saying. To me, I hear a person with severe decoding problems. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Are you having a good day?
Good.
Awesome. What's your favorite thing in the whole wide world?
Racing game.
Really? Tell me about that.
I work for 30 now.
Oh.
31 now, so. Yes, how are you doing?
That's cool. I'm doing very well. I hear that you do Special Olympics.
Yes, I am.
So I was really struggling to understand what he had to say. If a person has a hard time understanding and recognizing speech sounds, what do you think we should do to fix it? Should we teach them to recognize and understand speech sounds? What? That sounds crazy town, right? Don't worry, I'm gonna show you samples of that in just a moment. Now, the work that I'm doing is not the work of a speech-language pathologist. An SLP does much more complicated things. So what I'm doing is I'm helping the person to understand these sounds. And I'm going to play sample of his 11th session to see if you can tell that his speech sound understanding is now better. While I'm not doing speech therapy with him, it still can have a benefit of having clearer speech once things start being resolved.
How you doing?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Good.
Good, fantastic. Okay, so can I ask you some questions? What is your favorite thing in the whole wide world? What do you love?
Play game.
You like playing games? What kind of games do you like playing?
Xbox One.
Oh, Xbox One. Is there a certain game on Xbox One that you like?
To play my cars.
Oh, is there a car racing game on there? Yep. Could you hear a difference? Could you hear a difference in his speech? Hopefully you could.
Okay.
So, with coding, we have difficulties recognizing speech beginning at the phoneme level, and there's a symptom of example where his speech was indistinct or unclear, and the solution was to teach him how to recognize those sounds. Okay, this is where things get a little bit exciting, and I'm gonna spill some tea here. I'm gonna tell you some secrets. And Mom, I haven't even had the chance to call you about all of this. A person can have auditory processing issues and hearing loss at the same time. A lot of people have seen auditory processing over here and hearing loss over there. But I think there's actually quite a high degree of overlap. And I wonder if it's these people here who have had not as much success with hearing aids. So what more do we have to offer? This quote hit me square in the guts the other day. The client doesn't plateau, the clinician does. And a few of you might know how that feels from whatever you've been going through in the audience. That's Dr. Sellies Gadsden who said that. Let me tell you the story of this client, and his name is Matt. Channing Tatum has actually just bought Matt's movie, the rights to make Matt's movie, and is in production. Well, they haven't started production, but they have written the script. Channing Tatum will be playing the role of this client in an upcoming movie. Let me tell you Matt's story. When Matt was in college, he was trying to listen on the phone, and he couldn't understand what someone was saying. He went for a hearing test and found out that his hearing sensitivity wasn't the same in both ears. He heard better in one ear than he did in the other. So they sent him for an MRI. When he went for an MRI to check to see if everything was going great in his head, they found tumors. They found tumors on his auditory nerve. And they discovered that he has a condition called neurofibromatosis 2. In this condition, people develop tumors, and they're often benign, but when something takes up space in the brain, it starts putting pressure on other things, and results can be a bit disastrous. So when doctors saw these, they tried to open his skull to remove them, and the tumors could not be removed. So they cut the bones of his skull to allow the tumors to grow. They told Matt one day he was not going to be able to hear anything. And Matt is a huge music buff. And he thought if he was not going to have any sound in his head for the rest of his life, he wanted to use his top 100 songs, his favorite songs, and he created a soundtrack that he listened to those sounds over and over and over again so that those would be the songs permanently stuck in his head. One day, he stopped hearing altogether, and he decided to get something called an auditory brainstem implant. This is different from a cochlear implant. Cochlear implants go into the cochlea, But the problem is that the nerve is past the cochlea on the way to the brain. So if we send sound into the cochlea, it's still going to get stuck at that nerve. So instead, while Matt was awake, they opened up his brainstem, took an electrode and stimulated different parts on his brainstem. And he had to say, okay, this feels weird. Okay, I feel motion here. And then at one point, Matt said, I think I hear a sound. So they took 12 electrodes and they fastened it to his brainstem. And that is now how he hears sounds. Matt used his soundtrack of silence over 16 years and re-listened to music and trained himself how to understand speech. We would only expect a person with an auditory brainstem implant to know that sound exists. We wouldn't expect for him to get much above awareness. We would not expect to get him to comprehension at all. But Matt is amazing. Let me have him tell you how he hears with his auditory brainstem implant.
Today I'd like to answer probably the most difficult question, which is what does hearing loss sound like to me? And the reason that's difficult is because my hearing loss was caused by nerve damage. A traditional hearing aid or even a cochlear implant won't help. So I have an auditory brainstem implant, and every sound that I hear comes from just 12 electrodes that were surgically attached to my brain. So a good analogy might be if a traditional hearing aid is that box of 64 Crayola crayons with a flip-top lid and a built-in sharpener. I, on the other hand, have the 3 generic crayons that you get with the kids' menu at Applebee's. So it's certainly not the same. In terms of how that sounds, I describe it as robotic and muffled. And if you think...
So I love that Applebee's menu, or Applebee's crayon situation. So he had some testing done by his audiologist. And after 16 years of re-listening to this music, he trained himself to understand about 60% of speech in quiet, which is an absolute miracle. But I wanted to do some testing with him. So I met him last year, and I noticed an interesting finding. I found that he was struggling to understand speech sounds, and I was interested to see what we could do if we could make this better. So here is a sample of a test. He hears a sound, and he has to repeat that sound back. See if you can hear that what he is hearing and what he is saying has distortion and doesn't match up.
This is the phoneme recognition test. List A. V.
Ah.
R.
Buh.
Oi.
Oi.
J.
Okay, so then on session 11, after doing 1 hour of auditory training once a week for 11 weeks, see if you can hear an improvement.
This is the phoneme recognition test. List A. R. Oi.
Oi.
J.
Da.
Ah.
Ah.
Okay, so finally, I'm gonna show you the methods that I use to treat one part of auditory processing. This is the second session that I'm working with him. I'm saying a sound and he writes it down in front of him and he taps it every time he hears it and says the sound back to me. We work with 4 sounds per session and add 4 sounds, new sounds each week, and keep working on the old ones. So let me show you a sample of this. Here's the next sound. Okay. Like nose.
Sounds like.
Yeah.
All right. It sounds like eh. It sounds like a short e.
Thanks
But
for
it's
letting
not.
me know that. It's not. Net. Not. Next. Nincompoop.
Right.
N.
Yeah. All right.
What we're doing is we're reprogramming your brain to take these inputs and associate them with the sounds. But at the current moment, based on that one test that I did, your brain is doing that accurately about a third of the time. And I think we can increase it.
Okay.
So let's do the N sound.
Okay. Nay.
Cool, let's do this one together out loud.
So I heard that as nay, but it's
Nay.
actually just in.
All right.
I don't know if it's an electrode or what, but this is a sound that does not sound to me naturally.
Cool.
It sounds to me like you're saying I, Y, and then maybe an in, but it's very like nasally, and it just does not sound like the, sounds like a B. This does not sound like the letter N at all.
Okay, fascinating, right? So then here is session 4. And this is my mentor, Jack Katz. He lives in Kansas City. He's absolutely fantastic. 88 years old and still working clinically. And so Matt worked with Jack just a little bit. Hooray for the internet. Matt, you are doing amazingly well. And Jack, you're doing pretty well too. You keep up the good work.
Practice, practice, practice. Okay, here's a little bit of a challenge for you. So, N. Exactly right. Exactly.
I asked him, did it sound like an N sound? And he looked at me, he was like, of course it did. Sometimes clients aren't even aware of how much they improve. Here's session 6. Any one of them. Ah. B.
B.
Eh. D.
D.
That is amazing. Now, it looks really simple, doesn't it? Because it's just the letters that we learned in kindergarten, right? But it's actually quite complicated and it's quite difficult. But he totally nailed it. So he went from 64 and 67% correct to now 96 and 84% correct in quiet. Absolutely incredible. We also did some more difficult testing, and he can understand about 77.6% correct in quiet. And even more exciting, he now reports that he feels like he hears with 8 crayons. So he tells me that over 16 years, he used music to heal his brain. He said he got there 60% of the way on his own, and then I got him another 30% in just 3 months. Remember when I showed you this video about Nina Kraus? She's my best friend that doesn't know me very well yet. She's like the Jane Goodall of audiology. Well, Matt reached out to Nina and said, hey, Nina, you love music, I love music, I used music to heal my brain. And Nina said, that's outstanding. So then Matt said, but you really need to be working with Angela. And if I'm honest with you, she'd been ignoring my emails and brushing me off for years, but this made her pay attention. So she has now contacted, she and Matt and I are going to be meeting in Chicago. Now check this out, and this is what's going to be mind-blowing.
It's actually a lot of fun, and it's interesting and informative to listen to the FFR. I can be playing an instrument or talking to you, and the sound wave is taken by a microphone, and it is transformed into electricity that is then played out of a speaker.
Stop.
Now, we can listen to the sound and measure the electricity with scalp electrodes. And again, we can play the brain's response. And I just want to play a few examples of the frequency following response to you. So here is the stimulus. And here is the brain's response. So we have a lot to work with. And I wanted to have you listen to 3 healthy brains to have you hear how we all hear the world a little bit differently. So here is one brain recording, listening to the Beatles song. Here's another brain. And here's a third brain. So I hope that you can hear that even though the melody is the same, each brain processes the sound differently, which we can see in the response, and we can also hear it.
Okay, is anyone following what I'm about to say next? We are gonna meet at Nina Krause's lab, and we are going to play Matt's soundtrack of silence to him, and we are going to get to play back how his brain hears music. Is anyone else can you raise your hand if you're mind blown? Yes, 3 people. It's amazing. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna make it a short film. Mom, I've gotta talk to you. I really need to call you later. I'm so sorry. So, very rarely do you go to a talk and the speaker waits until the very end to tell you about the disorder they're talking about. I'm kind of a weirdo, so we kind of saw this coming, right? My goal was for you to see auditory processing, to understand the client and how the client felt. And now I want to talk to you about what it really looks like, because everyone in this room knows someone who has difficulties listening. Do you know anyone who has any of these symptoms? Trouble recognizing speech sounds. Some may have difficulty spelling. Some people have a slow response when they hear something. Some can have really poor articulation, so their speech sounds are really unclear. They can have difficulties reading aloud. They can have trouble learning a foreign language. Some of them may speak slowly. Some may have trouble understanding language. Many of them have trouble following spoken instructions. Their speech can be indistinct or unclear. They can be distracted by noise. They can have difficulties understanding speech and noise, or be hypersensitive to it. There are other ones that actually respond too quickly because they're afraid they're gonna forget what they've just heard. They can interrupt other people talking because they're worried they're gonna forget. They forget things that have been told. They have problems remembering instructions. They have difficulties with executive function, being able to stop and go. They have troubles keeping things in order, troubles keeping things organized. They can lose things. They can have difficulty bringing concepts and sensory things together. They can have poor handwriting, surprisingly, and they can have significant visual processing. Some of these clients can have really long delays. Some can be diagnosed with dyslexia, ADHD, traumatic brain injury, or autism. And some can have really, really significant reading and spelling problems. Not every client has all of these things, but even just a few of them may warrant looking into it. Now let me talk to you about things you can do starting today in order to help people who have difficulties with auditory processing disorder. Number one, please don't tease them when they mishear you. People who struggle with processing often have been teased by their peers and sometimes even their family. Be a safe space for them to be yourself, themselves, you know. Please allow them to ask you for repetition without fear of judgment. I had one client who would do this anytime she needed her husband to repeat himself. It was quite effective. They may feel tired from trying so hard to listen at work at the end of the day or in a really long lecture, right? Talk with them about the best way they would like to unwind. Would they like to go for a walk, sit and listen to music, or even zone out and watch TV with subtitles probably? If there is something important for you that could be missed, do you want to have it written down? Synchronize your calendar. Help them remember special happenings by coordinating online schedules and creating reminders. Be aware of noise. If they are struggling at a social occasion, offer to go for a short walk outside to relax for a moment. If your loved one is struggling to understand the TV, offer to put on subtitles. While they may be distracting at first, you may not even notice them after a while. Please give them the benefit of the doubt. Your loved one is not trying to make you frustrated when they are struggling to understand you or if they've forgotten what you've said. Auditory processing difficulties are unrelated to intelligence. Highly intelligent people can have APD. Often people who mishear what is said are treated like they lack intellect, attention, or are rude. Try to see past this to see your loved one's true potential. The last one, the most significant factor in success for a person with auditory processing disorder is the attitude and understanding with the people around them. Did you say yes to any of the questions we asked Jackie? If so, it's time for a hearing test. If you don't live locally, you could find someone on a map that I've created at apdsupport.com. I'll give you a link to that in a little bit. If you're in Wichita, Corey Visor Lawrence is at Heart Spring in Wichita, and Kit Frank, who is also from Newton, she's formerly Kit Emerson. I've actually trained her, and she provides these services remotely, so she'll meet with you over Zoom. Just to conclude from today, the ear is the hardware and the brain is the software, and we need both working well to have a great user experience. Please reach out to me to give me feedback directly. Here is a QR code that you can use to slip into my DMs if you know what that means. And if not, I would be so happy to take any questions that you've got. I am an absolute open book, so please feel free to ask any questions on your mind now. Thank you for listening.
I'm just going to turn it back around in case
That's
you can't
fine.
hear any questions. They're in the audio room, sorry.
Sarah, what did you think?
I thought it was perfect.
Oh,
I know, perfect.
I'm expecting that.
Yes.
No.
I thought it was great. While we're waiting for the microphones, I have a daughter who wears hearing aids, and I was relating to everything that you said about how she heard before she got hearing aids, and then what you said about after her hearing aids. I thought, well, if we just put the hearing aids in, then she'll be fixed. And that is absolutely not how it worked. It took 7 years before she would wear them on her own without an argument. So yes, I really enjoyed that. All right, we do have a question.
Hi. So I know we're talking about hearing loss, but does being overly sensitive to noises also affect the process?
Absolutely. Do you mind? Go ahead and turn the laptop around if you don't mind. Oh, fantastic. Okay, who am I speaking to? Can you raise your hand? Wonderful. Okay, so you're wanting to know about hypersensitivity to noise. There are a couple different types of hypersensitivities we can have to noise. There's one called hyperacusis, where things seem too loud in general. There's another one called misophonia, where there's certain sounds that you don't like. So that's like chewing sounds, snoring, things like that. Anybody have those problems? Okay, fantastic. Okay, so hyperacusis, where things seem too loud, too overwhelming, I think that is a part of auditory processing difficulty. But misophonia, those dislike of those certain types of sounds, I think that's a little bit of a different beast altogether. So what's most effective when people can't stand those sounds where there are certain trigger sounds, the best thing that we've found so far is cognitive behavioral therapy to try to reduce those triggers. But then the third type of speech in noise issue is where a person is annoyed with background noise because it decreases the accuracy of how they are performing in noise. Does that make sense? So I would say the hyperacusis, whoa, everything's too loud, and wow, I can't understand in noise, those feel like an auditory processing disorder and are more consistent with what I work with. Whereas misophonia can be something that is a different kind of process. Does anyone else have any questions? Yeah.
There are several
actually,
hands up here.
And somebody remind me to tell you my hot tip for snoring at the end of this. We'll do that. Yep.
Hi, so my question has to do with the electrodes that were placed around the brainstem. It looked like in your sessions with him there was a significant lack on one side of his face. I didn't know if you knew if that was due to maybe damage from the tumors or possibly from the surgery that he had.
Ooh, and what profession are you in?
Just nursing school.
All right, nursing school. Can somebody graduate this person already? That's fantastic. No, you are completely right. There is asymmetry in his face, and I believe that was the result of a surgical complication. I do know the reason for that, but I can't recall it. But excellent line of questioning.
Did that make
that is fantastic.
Did that make your therapy with him quite more difficult than compared with other people when he was trying to form those sounds?
No, and in fact, his family feels like he's speaking more clearly, and so they feel like his mouth is seeming more symmetrical just from the auditory training, which is surprising and not at all the reason why we would do it. I'm a big fan of not letting anything get in my way, and to all the nursing students and health professionals in the room, I hope that you feel the same way. There are some people who won't test auditory processing in case somebody has dyslexia or autism or something like that. But if we can help train auditory skills, we should do it. So thank you. You are right. It's important to consider this whole person, And thanks for your thoughts.
Thank
That was
you.
cool. Good job. Go you.
Okay.
Next question.
I have hearing aids, and I still feel like I don't hear properly. So, and I have some of the symptoms that you've mentioned, and you gave a local place to go, and I didn't get that.
That's awesome.
So
Thank you.
We can follow up with her information on where to get those resources after
Thank you.
this. Yeah,
Thank
not
you.
a problem.
Okay, Priscilla?
Awesome.
Yeah, I have a
Let's
question.
get you from awareness to comprehension, shall we? Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I have a question about age-related hearing loss. How does that affect the software?
That is so wonderful. Okay, so let's finally get to the reason I was asked to come speak here. Am I right? That's wonderful. So presbycusis, or age-related hearing loss, some people think only Presbyterians get it. I'm just kidding. I thought I'd at least try one Christian joke. So presbycusis is hearing loss that occurs over the lifespan, right? Now, there were two amazing studies that were done, one in remote populations in Africa and one in remote places in India. And what they did is they compared how much hearing loss someone has over age to Americans from the state fair. These were studies that were done in like the 1950s. And they were surprised what they found. The Americans at the state fair, who often had industrial jobs, showed significant hearing loss with age. Whereas these noise-free populations, where maybe someone shouting or thunder would be the loudest noise, maybe even a fart if it was really loud, were the loudest sounds these people were around, they found that they did not actually have hearing loss with age. So what we think of hearing loss from age is probably actually hearing loss from noise, noise-induced hearing loss. So if a person has noise-induced hearing loss, they are more likely to have auditory processing difficulties. So if we think about the pyramid of Egypt and sand blowing across it and the pyramid slowly going away, is the problem time or is the problem sand? I don't think we're gonna get rid of the sand. Is that a terrible analogy? Probably. Any other questions?
Yeah, so playing into what you actually just said, do you feel like you see more auditory problems in our younger generations as we progress with technology and we're having like the constant headphones in our ears playing music? And
If I'm very honest with you, the main concern that I've got is from COVID for three different reasons. Children who were exposed, especially very young children from the age of birth to 2 years of age, where they were not seeing to be able to match up what people were saying on their lips with the sound they were receiving in their brain, are at a huge disadvantage to previous generations, number one. But I'm pro-science, let me just say that too. All about the mask wearing, except that's a bit of a bummer. Also, with COVID isolation, where people aren't exposed to as many different speakers, that's tough. So COVID's gonna have that part. And then also, there's a certain thing called auditory processing disorder post-COVID infection. But guess what, y'all? It's treatable. Hooray! I feel like I've got job security. What do you think? I do have some concerns, and I think that, you know, technology can be a downfall and it can also be a support. So we're gonna have to use things like using captions, and with hearing aids getting cheaper, I'm hoping that remote microphone hearing aids, which can be worn on a teacher's ears, where the teacher wears a microphone and the hearing aids bring the voice from the teacher directly to the child. I've got a bias and I prefer therapy over devices, but still, in some situations, this is the best we can do for that child. So yes, I do have some concerns, but we have this whole cohort moving through, and we're just gonna have to really do as good of a job as we can in schools to try to help bridge that gap.
Okay.
Yep.
Another question in the back? Or you're just passing the mic? Okay, other questions? Oh, Mom's got a question.
Oh, my mom's got a question. Hi,
Yeah,
Mom.
I think it's what time is it there?
Hi, Angela. I was a school nurse for 18 years. I tested kids for special ed. Kids were not being tested for central auditory processing. What do you say about working with audiologists in the schools?
It is so hard. You know how I told you that out of 100 people in this room, probably at least 5 people have auditory processing disorder?
Mm-hmm.
The rate of permanent childhood hearing loss is 1 to 2 in 1,000. Audiologists in school systems are already overworked with an issue that is only 1 to 2 out of 1,000. So if we take 5 out of every 100 and add to their caseload, they're understandably quite concerned. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do something about it.
Mm-hmm. The truth is, in the Wichita Public Schools, we had 2 audiologists for all kids.
I won't make you say their names. I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah, we were not
No, it's
friends
okay.
because one did not believe in central auditory processing, and he really pushed my buttons, and I pushed his back.
I'm gonna have to have someone repeat that to me later. But no,
Yeah.
that's Mom,
Yeah.
you're right. And you know, after I've seen what I have seen, I cannot unsee
Yes.
these things. And I hope that everyone in this room can also feel this too. I am not trying to overwhelm audiologists with a bigger caseload than they already have. But my hope is that because hearing aids have at least part going direct to consumer, that this is going to allow audiologists to do more of this important work.
Mm-hmm. And I would like to say that there are very few people who work with adults with central auditory processing. And so that has been Angela's stronghold, that there have only been several who have done that, but I want to see more working with children, because there is, in the autistic spectrum, there are people who work with their speech, but the understanding, the comprehension, that's lacking. Thanks, Ange. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Mom. Love you.
I have a quick question about accent. You're down there with the Australians and the New Zealanders, and how does that sound come through their brains? Is the accent play any part? And then extrapolating that out to foreign languages, foreign to you, for example, someone speaking German or Spanish or French, but more specifically the accent.
Yeah, okay, so dialect is important, and it is important to consider that. So for me, especially if I'm using test material from a different country with a different dialect, I have to analyze my results carefully. And there have been some of these tests evaluated and re-normed for different populations. So they might say, okay, in Kansas, no, in the US, these people normally have this many errors. But in New Zealand, these people have that many errors. So we can get normative data from different populations. If a person struggles significantly with a person with a different dialect, it is a potential sign of an auditory processing disorder. Because when they're trying to put the pieces together, they can't decode what they're hearing. So if you've ever landed in a new country where or in a different country where they speak a different language, you can be aware of the sounds that people are saying, but you can't decode it until you, excuse me, let me just swallow my spit. You can't decode it until you actually have experience in that language. So I would say that a majority of people who don't have auditory processing difficulties or hearing loss have some ability to understand different dialects, but it's significantly reduced if a person does have those problems. The problem that I've heard clients tell me is that people will think that they are racist because they are really struggling to understand people who have different first languages. And I think that's just something to put into the back of our minds, because it is really easy to feel rejected by someone who isn't understanding us. But sometimes that's due to a neurological difficulty that actually needs testing and treatment.
We probably have time for one more question. If anyone has anything, this has been the most fascinating hour of my day, if not the week, perhaps longer.
This has been one of the best of the 24 hours of his day, y'all. That's fantastic.
And she still says y'all, and she ain't even from Oklahoma. Can't believe it. All right.
Let me tell you one more thing. I'm going to tell you my hot tip on how to take in snoring and not let your heart rate increase. How many people in this room have a snorer that they live with or share a bed with? Oh, more than 3. Okay. Y'all listen up. I want you to try something tonight because it is getting rather late there. First of all, if your loved one has not had themselves looked at medically to make sure that there isn't a reason why they're snoring, step 1, science, let's make sure they're healthy. If there isn't a reason for them snoring, I want you to try this. I want you to listen to their snoring and tell yourself, this is the sound that my loved one makes when they are happy and asleep. Then I want you to slowly time your breath with their snores. All right, everyone practice. Here we go. Just kidding. But slowly time your breath with the ebbs and flows of their snoring. And let's just see if I can prevent a murder. Thanks a lot for listening. I really appreciate it, y'all. Drive safely, and Mom, give me a call. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. I'm going to turn you off and dismiss everybody. I'm not going to turn you off. I'm just going to mute you.
Take care.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for attending our first symposium. We hope that you enjoyed it, and have a safe drive home. Thank you.